Hello students, I am Sonali Kelkar from City International School, and today we are going to do the topic why do we fall ill, right? In today's topic we are going to take the topics that are causes of disease that we have already done. So we are going to take a recap of this topic. Antibiotics, this topic we are going to take in today's session, then principle of treatment and principles of preventions, right? Now, means of spread. As we have done this before, we'll just take a small recap on these. There are different methods through which diseases can transfer, right? So the number one method here is airborne transmissions. We know, we have seen that people are coughing around us, sneezing around us. Maybe they are suffering with a common cold or pneumonia. Okay, so whenever they cough, whenever they sneeze, some few droplets of water comes out of their nose or comes out of their mouth, and these droplets have pathogens in it. Okay, now what are pathogens? These are microbes which causes disease. So the person who are standing nearby to a diseased person who is having cough and cold, these all person have high chances of getting infection, right? So these are called airborne infections, and these infections usually uh, uh, for example, these infections are measles, that is also airborne infection, then common cough, cold, pneumonia, flu. These are the example of airborne diseases. And we can also say if a person is in a air conditioned room with so many persons, so that air condition is definitely going to spread the disease, and even a room which is occupied by many people. So here we can see, if you enter a room that was initially occupied by a patient of measles, you too might catch the infection, because measles is a highly contagious virus, okay, that lives in the nose and throat mucus of an infected person. So it can spread to others through coughing and sneezing, right? And coming to the next, contaminated objects. So if you touch any object which is contaminated by other person who was suffering with any kind of disease, okay, so with that touch also people can get infection. So touching the infected object which were initially used by the diseased person might render us diseased. Contaminated blood and medical supplies can also spread infections, right? If we have used a needle, or if a person if a if a doctor has used a particular needle or injection in one person and he is using the same to the other person, or if by any mistake, by mistake, that needle is touched by any person, then definitely that infectious microorganism, that pathogens will enter to a healthy person and may cause disease in that person. Okay, now coming to vector borne diseases, we know that what are pathogens? They are microorganisms. Sometimes these microorganisms may taken from a healthy person or a diseased person to healthy person through vectors, and these vectors can be birds, can be animals, okay, can be human being also, and carry infectious agents from from the diseased person to a healthy person. So these infections are transmitted to a new host. For example, malaria is the disease that has a vector, that is a vector-borne disease. Okay, Lyme is also a disease that is a vector-borne disease. Lyme. Food and drinking water. Then if you eat food which is contaminated food, which is contaminated by fungus, by bacteria, of course that can lead to a food poisoning. Then even drinking water, if the drinking water is contaminated by the fecal of a person who has some kind of infections, so these by having this type of contaminated water, a person may have disease, right? For example, cholera. Here you can see the typhoid, cholera, These are the example of waterborne diseases. Hepatitis A, waterborne diseases. Okay, this hepatitis A is also known as jaundice, right? And food poisoning is foodborne diseases. Then here you can see a person is having food on which the fly is sitting, and he is having that food. This fly have already sat on a fecal material, and then from there it is containing pathogens. Okay, and then this food is eaten by a person. So you should never have food which are exposed to flies, right? This can cause infection. Now here you can see in the next picture, there is a lady suffering with malaria. Now this malaria pathogen, which is a protozoa carried by mosquito, it is female mosquito, Anopheles mosquito, right? When this mosquito bites her, that time through the saliva of mosquito, the protozoans will enter into her body, right? From there it will go to the liver. You have seen this liver. A protozoa completes its cycle in the liver, and the rest of the cycle it completes in RBCs, or red blood corpuscles, okay, where they divide and multiply in n numbers, right? So this cause malaria. So mosquito is example of vector over here. Here you can see a person sneezing, and you can see the droplets which are falling over here and which are there in the environment for a much longer time. And if a person whose immunity is very low, he is not that immune person, comes in contact with these pathogens which are there in air, definitely he will also suffer with disease. Now comes to direct contact. Some diseases like skin infections, ringworms, conjunctivitis are spread by direct contact with infected person through handshakes, through touch, or through skin, right? So you can see here healthy person, and through the direct contact you don't have to wear other people's clothes. See the person now, he was a healthy person, right? Now look at this. Now he is suffering with a disease, right? So here we can see the different type of disease, how they can pass through from a infected person to healthy person. There are vectors here, and there are contacts here, unhygienic food, and direct contact. You are coming in touch with the people who are already suffering with disease. Now coming to organ specific and tissue specific manifestation. There are certain diseases which cause some kind of trouble to one particular type of organ or tissues. Let's study these. So disease causing microbes enter the body by different means, right? These microbes, if they are entering through your nose, then definitely this microbes can cause trouble to your lungs, because through nose they are going to go to lungs, and lungs are they are very delicate part of our body, okay? And microorganism or bacteria develop very fast in lungs. Okay, now what about the microbes which are entering through the mouth? Okay, when a microbe enter through the mouth, definitely it is likely to stay in the gut, that is intestine, and in stomach, and it can cause typhoid, okay, or liver. They can live in the liver also. So in the liver, bacteria can cause jaundice. Here there shouldn't be bacteria, there should be virus here. Virus is a pathogen that cause jaundice. I'll just cut it and write virus. Virus is a pathogen that cause any kind of jaundice. Now there are hepatitis A, B, C, D and E, right? But hepatitis A is very common, which is caused by contaminated water, and hepatitis B is caused by infected needles, or if a person has given a blood of an infected person, definitely that is that the healthy person will come in contact with the hepatitis B virus, and it will cause jaundice or hepatitis in a healthy person. Now a virus which cause AIDS that enters through sexual organs during sexual contact, and these viruses, they are going to spread through the lymph of all the parts of the body, right, and damages the immune system. So lymphs are the lymph nodes where the WBC production is more, where the WBCs are more, and we know that in WBC there are lymphocytes and monocytes which kills bacteria or which kills antigens. Antigens means any foreign object that is coming inside your body. It can be organism or it can be any dust particle which cause allergy, right? So these things, when the foreign material or when foreign objects enters into the body, the lymphocytes and monocytes, that becomes very active and that always try to kill that antigen, right? Then viruses which cause Japanese encephalitis, that is brain fever, enters the body through mosquito bite and goes and infect the brain. Now this is something unusual. In the above three example, that is first, second and third, viruses are entering through a nose, through stomach and through sexual contact, so organs, sexual organs, and they are attacking a one particular type part of the body. But here you can see the fourth, in the fourth case, we see that it is not always like that. Here the entrance of the microorganism is different, and where they are attacking the tissues or the body part in which they are attacking, that are very different. So mosquito, through mosquito bite, a person is getting brain problem or brain fever. Now let's see the signs and the symptoms of diseases, right? The sign and symptoms of a disease will depend upon the tissue or the organ targeted by microorganisms, right? Let's see the first example. If the lungs are targeted, then symptoms will be, it will be cough and breathlessness. And if the liver is targeted, then there will be jaundice, right? What is jaundice? In case of jaundice, the urine color will change to orangish, eyes will become yellow, skin will also look yellow, and person will lose appetite. Losing appetite means he don't feel like to eat anything. He will always have that feeling of nausea. Now coming to the brain, if the brain is targeted, we all know that a brain controls whole body. So if the brain is targeted, what are the different symptoms you can observe? That is headache, vomiting. Okay, vomit point is present in the brain. So that can cause vomiting if the brain is targeted by any kind of virus. Then fits or unconsciousness. Note, in addition to these tissue-specific effects of infectious disease, there will be other common effects also, right? Most of these common effects depends on the fact that the body's immune system. Now, what can you understand by the common effects? As we know that if a person is suffering with any kind of infection and body's immune system cannot able to handle that much of infection, that means that if the microorganisms are more in number, then definitely the microorganism will overcome the immune system, and your immune system would not able to handle to kill so much of microorganisms. Definitely you will find inflammation and then fever. So inflammation, fever are very common and very general symptoms of a person if he is suffering with any kind of disease. Now coming to the general effects of infectious disease. So as I've already discussed with you that what can be the general effects seen in a person if he or she is suffering with any kind of disease. As we all know that immune system is essential for our health. It is a defense system that protects body against various kinds of microbes. So when infectious microbes enter the body, the immune system gets activated in response to the infection, right? So an active immune system recruits many cells to the affected area and kill off the disease causing microbes. This recruitment process is known as inflammation. So you can see an active immune system recruits many cells to the affected tissues to kill the disease causing microbes, and this recruitment process is called inflammation. So if let's take an example. If your throat is infected by some kind of bacteria or virus, then you will find that there is irritation in the throat, there will be pain in the throat, there will be swelling in the throat, and if you don't treat it on time, then definitely a person will suffer with fever, right? So these are the general effects. So our body, it gives out microbes, it gives out cells. Okay, it tells some cells, that is called lymphocytes, monocytes, which is a part of WBC. It tells that cells to go and attack that bacteria or viruses, right? And because of that, we get that inflammation in that particular place. Okay, due to this process, there are local effects. You can, as I've already discussed, swelling, pain, and general effects such as fever, right? In some cases, the tissue specificity of the infection leads to a very general seeming effects. For example, in HIV infection, the virus goes to the immune system and damages its function. So due to this, the body can no longer fight off many minor infections like cold and diarrhea, and this may lead to death. So this is tissue specific disease. Here HIV virus, we know that this virus directly attacks the immune system. It paralyzes the immune system of a person, and the person will suffer with many kind of diseases. Suppose this person comes in contact with the common cold, he will never come over the common cold, and even a simple common cold disease can be a cause of his or her death. Okay, there can be diarrhea, there can be tuberculosis. So these simple diseases which can be cured in normal person, but a person who is suffering with who is infected with HIV virus, who is suffering with AIDS, cannot able to overcome these diseases, and this will lead to death. Now, it is also important to remember that the severity of disease manifestations depends upon the number of microbes in the body. I have already discussed this point with you, that number of microbes, if the number of microbes are more and the immune system of a person is weak, then definitely that person will see very severe effects of diseases. Okay, he will definitely have high fever. He will or she will take time to overcome that disease. She might has to, or he might has to undergo antibiotic doses, probably 1 dose or 2 doses, right? So it all depends upon the immunity system of a person and how he takes care of his or her health. Okay, if the number of microbes is very small, the disease manifestation may be minor or unnoticed. Manifestations means the symptoms that a disease show. Okay, if a person is affected by a common cold, what can be the normal symptoms? Sneezing, running nose, reddishness of eyes, right? And if it becomes severe, then in that case he or she might suffer with fever, right? So these are called manifestation. Okay, if the disease is minor and immunity system of a person is also good, then definitely these symptoms will be unnoticed. Okay, but if the number is of the same microbe large, the disease can be severe enough to be life threatening. Note, the immune system is a major factor that determines the number of microbes surviving in the body. Of course, immune system is nothing but like a soldier's, right? Okay. Now, if the enemies, that is antigens, entering in your body, and the soldiers of your body kill the maximum number of enemies, so definitely it won't harm your body that much. But if the number of enemies are more and your soldiers are weak, so if the antigens are very powerful and your immune system is quite weak, then the chances of coming over to that disease is less, and person may die because of the attack of pathogens. Now let's do the principles of treatment. So there are two ways to treat an infectious diseases, right? What are the main point of the treatment? Okay, so if a person, infected person, goes to doctor will examine him or her, and then he will decide what should be the treatment given to that person. It depends upon the condition of that person, whether that person is showing a mild manifestation of the disease or the mild symptoms, or the symptoms are really life threatening, right? He is having or she is having a fever for 2 to 3 days, and that too of 104°F. So definitely in that condition, the condition is serious, and doctor has to do the treatment according to the condition of a patient. So let's see what are the two ways to treat the infectious diseases. Number one, reduce the effects of disease, right? We can reduce the effects of diseases. We can reduce the number of microorganisms, so the symptoms will get mild and the recovery will be soon. Our second is to kill the cause of the disease, right? But in both the cases, the immunity power of a person is very, very important. Okay, so let's see. We can provide treatment that will reduce the symptoms. The symptoms are usually because of inflammation. Suppose you got a throat infection, right? On the first day you are complaining about pain in a throat, but you don't have fever. So your mom will give you certain homemade medicines or some Ayurvedic medicines, or she will tell you to drink hot water. Some kara will be given to you, okay, to subside the disease. Okay, for example, we can take medicines that bring down fever. If you have a fever below 100°, only in that case mild medicines can be given. If you have fever more than 100, then definitely medicines such as crocin or combiflam will be given. But if this fever persists for 3 to 4 days and it is not coming down even after taking medicine, then it's a serious condition, right? So it can reduce the pain, or if a person suffering with loose motion, so a person can be given different type of homemade remedies, right? Then afterwards, if the symptoms are subside, then definitely the immunity system or the immunity power of that person will overcome that disease causing pathogens. Then we can take bed rest. A person can be advised to take bed rest so that he can conserve energy, so that he can save energy, and this energy which is saved can be used by our body to fight against antigens. And it will heal your body also. But this kind of symptoms directed treatment by itself will not make the infecting microbes go away, right? It is not certain, it is not clear that the microbes have gone away. It might possible that person may complain after 3-4 days about the stomach pain or the throat pain, okay, or the loose motion, right? So you are not sure whether the person is completely free from the pathogens, and the disease will not be cured. For that we need to able to kill off the microbes. If the disease is not completely cured, if the microbes are still inside his or her body, then that microbes may divide again and cause a problem in person's body. Now, principles of treatment. to kill the cause of disease. Now under this heading, the second was to kill the cause of disease. How do we kill microbes? Okay, how do we kill microbes? Is the treatment for the different kinds of pathogens. Okay, so let's say what are the four different types of categories of pathogens that we have already seen, right? Bacteria, viruses, protozoans, fungi, and worms, right? So there are five types of disease causing organisms. First four, that is bacteria, virus, protozoa, and fungi. They are microorganisms, and the worms are not microorganisms. To treat all these type to kill all these type of microorganisms, do you think that the treatment should be the same, or do you think the treatment should be different in different cases, right? So definitely the treatment giving for the different group of microorganisms will have to be different. Clear? So we have seen earlier that microbes can be classified into different categories: virus, bacteria, fungi, or protozoa. And each of these group of organisms will have some essential biochemical life. So their life processes, the biochemical life process is different in different type of groups, right? So definitely it needs a different type of treatment. So every group, any microorganism which is falling in these four groups will be treated differently. The medicines will be differently. We will see how different they are. For example, the treatment of bacterial disease, antibiotics can be taken by patient that blocks essential biochemical path of bacteria. Okay, as you can see in this picture, right? Okay, and there is this bacteria is treated with antibiotic, and what is happening in this bacteria? If you see, this bacteria is covered with a capsule. This is a very hard capsule, and this bacteria can survive in this capsule for many years, right? But if this bacteria enters in your body, and if I give any antibiotic, this antibiotic will hamper the formation of this cap. So this cap won't form. And when this cap won't form, what will happen? Okay, there are so many things which is happening, right? The inhibition of protein synthesis, protein won't synthesize. Inhibition of nucleic synthesis, DNA won't synthesize, right? Inhibition of cell wall synthesis, cell wall is not forming. You can see this cell wall, this part is over here, the cell wall is not forming. So we are disturbing the biochemical cycle of microorganism, and thereby we are killing these microorganisms, right? So we don't want these microorganisms to survive in our body. For that, the patient should be given antibiotics. Okay. Similarly, there are drugs that can kill protozoans also, such as malaria parasite. Okay, malaria is caused by protozoa, but it is harder to make antiviral medicines because viruses have very few biochemical mechanism of their own, right? So viruses, they don't have some biochemical mechanism just like a bacteria, which you can bacteria will form a capsule around it and it can survive, but viruses doesn't have so many biochemical mechanism. So it is very difficult to treat viruses with antibiotics. In fact, we can't treat any diseases with antibiotics, right? So they enter in our cells, these viruses enter in our body and use our machinery. It use our body machinery to complete their life processes. So to treat viruses, the treatments are different. But there are now effective antiviral drugs. Nowadays we have effective antiviral drugs. For example, drugs that keep HIV infection under control. They don't kill, but they control the viruses, right? Now, principles of prevention. We all know a proverb that prevention is better than cure. Okay, so why we allow bacteria
viruses, fungi, protozoans to attack in our body, to attack us. So, okay, before they attack us, we can take certain preventive methods to stay away from these pathogens so that we can live a very healthy life, right? So, while treating an infection or a disease, three limitations are generally faced. These three limitations are as follows. Someone had a disease which completely damaged its body functions to an extent that it cannot be recovered. So there are limitation in treatment of diseases, right? It is not like if a person is attacked by a tuberculosis bacteria, he will be a completely healthy person throughout his life, right? So to avoid these kinds of circumstances which will definitely lead your health to a bad condition, so we can keep ourselves healthy. So what are the different limitations when a person is infected by a disease? First we will see that, and then we will look at the different preventive methods. Now the person suffering from some ailment might be bedridden. A person can be bedridden for his life for some time, or he might be bedridden for a whole life, right? Because it takes times to cure many diseases, right? Or to cure any diseases, the person has to be bedridden. Okay, person will complain about the malfunctioning of some of the body organs, or a person suffer from some disease might spread the infection to the other people as well, right? So therefore it is necessary to prevent certain diseases beforehand. So let's see how can disease be prevented. Okay, so there are two ways of preventing a particular disease. Number one, general way. We all know about this general way. We can keep our surrounding clean, right? Hygienic conditions should be maintained in the surrounding where we live. Okay. There should be a limited exposure to airborne microbes by providing not so crowded living condition. You should not live in a very crowded, congested living conditions, right? Okay, where you live, that atmosphere should be airy, highly ventilated, okay, nice, clean. Your surroundings should be clean, your community should be clean. We have discussed this in our previous lectures also, how safe water, safe drinking water is important to prevent waterborne diseases. You can provide a clean environment which prevent the breeding of mosquitoes, right? So this prevent the spread of vector-borne diseases. So these are some general ways for the prevention of disease. Now, how can disease be prevented? The second part is, if someone is suffering from a cold and cough in the class, is it likely that the children sitting around will be exposed to the infection? Yes, we can say that the children who are sitting around that boy or girl, they can be exposed to infection. But all of them, do they actually get the disease? No, they don't get actually disease. Why not they get disease? Okay, why not they get disease? Why not they get disease? The answer is because everyone doesn't have the same immunity power, right? A person who has low immunity power will get the disease, and person which has high immunity power will won't get the disease, right? So some other general principles of prevention are the immune system. So normally fights off microbes. The cell of the immune system are specialized in killing infectious microbes. That is why we don't always fall sick, right? And how can you say that a person is having a good immunity power? Which all things can directly help to improve your immunity power, right? We all know that a person can have a good immunity power if he and she is having a balanced diet. Okay. It's not only balanced diet, a person can have a disciplined lifestyle also. A person must be active, That means he should have some physical activities on a daily basis. He must be playing game, he must be going outside, he must be running around, he must be doing exercises. So all these physical activity, okay, it increases your blood circulation level, it increases the oxygen which is present in your blood, and these definitely increases your stamina and your immunity. Okay, so let's see how balanced diet improves the immunity system. The immune system will not function properly if sufficient amount of food and nourishment is not available. Okay, when I'm talking about sufficient amount of food, then we must understand that it should not be a fast food, it should be healthy food, right? You should have seasonal fruits. Okay, you shouldn't have fried fruits or fried food, sorry, and the food which people are selling on the roads, which is open for flies to sit. So these are this type of food is not advisable. You should have a balanced diet and a food which is properly cooked, a food which is healthy, and a food which is not contaminated. Now coming to immunization. So immunization, it relates to a peculiar property of immune system that usually fights off microbial infection. Uh, Here I can explain you that if a person is exposed to a disease causing microbe, but that disease causing microbe is the strain of that disease causing microbe is not strong. Okay, that is a weak microbe that is infected a person. Okay, but as soon as this microbe infect a person, the immunity system of a body will recognize that microbe, and they will start making antibodies against that microbe. Now here I have already told you that that microbe is in a very small amount. It is a weak microbe which ingested in the body. Okay, so as a result our body start making antibodies which will kill that microorganism. But in future, if that person is infected with a microorganism in a large amount which is not weak, right, that person won't be having any kind of symptoms, he or she won't show any kind of symptoms of that particular disease, right, because in his body or in her body antibodies are already present, and these antibodies will definitely going to produce more very fast. They are going to produce more and more antibodies, and they will kill the microorganisms, right? So this is a technique in immunization. So our body immune system, it has a very good memory power, right? So it remembers that okay, this microbe have already attacked our body, we have that type of antibodies, let's produce that antibodies more to fight against the disease causing bacteria or disease causing microbes. Okay, so the next time that particular microbe or its close relatives, even the close relative, enter the body, the immune system respond with even greater vigor, with greater strength. Vigor means strength, or with greater power. This eliminates the infection even more quickly than the first time around. So this was first seen in the people who were suffering with smallpox. So 100 years back, the smallpox was a very pandemic disease, and this has killed many people. But what was observed, that the people who have already suffered with smallpox can take care of the people who are suffering with smallpox. It shows that the people who have already suffered with the smallpox, they in their body they have developed the antibodies that can fight against these smallpox viruses, and these people now can take care of the people who are suffering with the smallpox, right? So we can now see that as a general principle, we can fool the immune system, okay, into developing a memory for a particular infection by putting something that mimics the microbe we want to vaccinate against into the body. So what we can do is we can take a very mild or a dead virus or bacteria and induce that dead microbe in our body. Our body as a result is going to make antibodies to fight against that microbe. Okay, now our body is prepared with that type of antibodies, and in the next time if that microbes or the close relative enter in our body, definitely our body will fight against that microbe, right? Here is the definition. It is the body's ability to generate an immune response naturally or through vaccines. So we can give vaccines which are vaccines has dead or very weak microbes in it, which is injected in human body, so that our body start making antibodies against that microbe. So this method builds immunity or resistance to a particular disease. Now coming to vaccination. Vaccine is a biological preparation that resembles a disease causing microbes. As I've already told you, so vaccination is the process. Vaccination, it is a process in which vaccine is given to improve the immunity of the body against a specific disease. You must have heard about that you must be given, in fact, the vaccinations of tetanus, diphtheria, whooping cough, measles, polio and chickenpox. So a child after his birth has given all these vaccination, and I think this is given till the age of 14 and 15 according to the doses suggested by the doctor. Okay, so the microbe ingested into the body through vaccination is dead or a weak. This is very important point, and hence does not affect the body. Therefore, the immune system is able to manage. So if you see immunization, so immunization is a complete program in which the body or in which the person is given different type of vaccination so that he is fit to fight with the microbes he is coming across. But at the same time, the immune system also recognizes the microbe and the way to fight it back. This I have already discussed that our immune system has a good memory power. It remembers, right? See, this microbe has already attacked our body, so let's make it more antibodies and fight against this microbe when you actually come across that disease. So when the same microbe comes to affect the body next time, then the immune system recognizes and fights back, thereby prevents us from getting sick. So children, this is all about today's topic, and practice today's topic. Thank you so much.